Welcome back to the BPOS podcast. As always, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. Leave messages if you'd like. I read every single one. If you're watching on Spotify or listening on Spotify, rate us, review us. Same thing on Apple. Really helps the podcast and really helps us get the message out there and reach more people. Today, I got my very good friend, Steve Rozenberg, here. I'm super excited. Just flew in from LA. Yeah. Came straight from the airport. Mm-hmm. We're going to hang out a little bit today, tonight. You're out tomorrow morning, yeah?
I am out tomorrow morning.
Okay. All right. So look, Steve and I mean, we've known each other for
20 years?
20,
yeah. About 20 years.
Which is crazy. So since we were 5.
Yeah, pretty much, because we look better than we did 20 years ago.
Jeez Louise, man. No, but we met because Rochelle and Renee were in a play group together.
Yeah.
And so all of our kids, Jet, Connor, and Cole, they all got to do kid stuff in the neighborhood. Yeah. And we lived in the same neighborhood in Houston. And as much as we fought it, the girls forced us to be friends.
Yeah, well, it happens.
Yeah.
It's like magnets.
As long as you hold them the right way.
Yes, good point.
Yeah, and so I'm stoked. I'm stoked that you're here.
Yeah.
We tried to put this together for a while.
Uh-huh.
You're a busy guy, flying jumbo jets across the pond.
Yeah, 777s. Yeah.
777s. I got to ride on a couple of those, man. It's very comfortable.
When you go down to Brazil, it's probably what you take.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
I actually got, in the heyday, when you had status and they were bumping you up.
Yeah.
I got bumped up to business class one time. Yeah.
It's all the difference when you're doing those long haul evening flights.
Oh my God. Just being able to lay down flat and sleep.
Totally.
It's crazy. So, I mean, tell me a little bit about your history and background.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Los Angeles. 5 siblings. All I ever wanted to do as a little kid was be a pilot. That's all I ever wanted to do. And, my parents, they had the blue collar mentality, and they said, if you want something, you've got to go get it.
Okay.
No one's going to give you anything in life, so go get it. I had to figure it out. And, this is back in the day when both parents worked and, come home when the lights are on, and if not, leave a note. And you will figure it out. If you do stupid stuff, things will happen to you, and you will figure it out. That era that you and I grew up in. So I became a pilot. I was 25 years old. I got hired with Continental Airlines. I was the second youngest person hired at Continental at the time.
Wow.
Yeah, and we just got married and moved to Guam and moved out to the South Pacific Island. And for 3 years, we lived in Guam, flew all over Australia, Asia, everything. And it was amazing.
So you moved to Guam for the job?
For the job. Yeah, that we have a pilot base.
Very
Continental
cool.
had a pilot base in Guam.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And all over, like I said, Japan, Asia, Australia, New Zealand, all the South Pacific Islands. I mean, it was 25 years old. It was really the best. I mean, it was amazing. You're thinking, this is the best job in the world.
Right.
And everyone said, oh, this is the most safe, most secure job you could ever have. Steve, you are set for life. That was true until 9/11. And so when 9/11 hit, I ended up getting furloughed from the airlines. I got my furlough notice 2 days after the towers fell.
Okay.
And, I had to kind of redirect myself and figure out what I was going to do. I never actually got the furlough because they keep cutting from the bottom till they cut to profitability, essentially.
Okay.
They said, we're cutting 1,200 people. You were on the list. We will let you know when your day comes. So every day you're going into work going, is this the week I get the notice?
Today the day.
We had Jet in 2002. So this is shortly after I started doing some real estate. I started a property management company, and I wanted the property management company just in case the airline thing never worked.
Okay.
In case something happened, I wanted to have something on the backside.
Diversification.
And not related to the airline industry.
Right.
So I started the property management company and started buying some real estate and kind of went down that path concurrently with the airline job. And I came within 30 numbers of the bottom of getting furloughed.
Whoa.
And started coming back up, and then we ended up merging with United.
Right.
And so the story, of United went on, and now I still fly. I've been there 26 years with United, Continental United. So I fly the 777. I still do a lot of speaking. I do business coaching. I help entrepreneurs. And obviously where this story is going to take us, I've always been a big believer that when you own a business, the business is just the vehicle to give you the life that you want.
Okay.
So whether you sell coffee, whether you sell roofing, whether you sell real estate, it doesn't matter. That's just the mechanism to give you the lifestyle that you want to have to enjoy your life with your family, create memories. And I've always been that person saying, create memories. And even I'm guilty of getting caught up and being very busy, being busy.
Sure.
And I think we all do as in life. We had a tragedy happen about a year and a half ago with our son, Jet, passed away in a motorcycle accident. And, there, as you were very involved in that situation, knowing what happened. And, and I don't know if you want to go there this fast in the story, but it really made me realize, gosh, like, what am I, like, what did I do wrong? Like, why did this happen? Like, what was it? Because, well, let me back up. I ride motorcycles,
right?
Or I did. I haven't ridden since he passed away. The one thing I always wanted to do was ride motorcycles with Jet. And so he got a motorcycle and we were riding and he passed away on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of guilt with that, obviously. And everyone says, it's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. He was just going through the intersection and sadly someone made a left turn, hit him. He wasn't speeding. He didn't do anything. But at the end of the day, you still carry that guilt of saying it was me. So even though I'm a big believer of professing that, you need to create memories and do all these things, I did the exact opposite after Jet passed. I went into hyperdrive of keeping myself busy. And I think a lot of it, and this was with the coaching, I think a lot of it is that it was easier for me to help other people than to help myself.
Sure.
So it's easier to go, I'm just going to work and help them. I'm going to go speak. I'm going to travel because I don't have to have time to really sit and reflect on me. And so, I remember someone told me this, and it was the first year, and it's the first everything. And I remember someone said, the first year is horrible. It's the first of everything, and it's going to be the worst. And I'm like, yeah. And they said, the second year is worse. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, how is that possible? I'm like, I don't even, like, how can you say that? I thought they were going to say, oh, it's going to get better.
Right.
And they're like, it's worse. They go, because now it's concreted in. And now you realize everyone's going on with their life and you don't have what you had.
Yep.
And that is, what we're in the second year, and it's holding true. I mean, it's been very, very tough. For many, many reasons. It's just a challenge. You realize that, that knock on the door that we got, was the last memory we ever had with Jet. And I always tell people, now when I speak at events, I talk about him and, the foundation we created. And I tell people, like, no one ever knows when that knock is coming.
That's right.
And I would rather be the person that said, I'm glad I did, instead of I wish I would have.
Sure.
Because, as Jet got to do a lot of things. He got to travel around the world and see a lot of things. And I'm glad I did that.
Right.
After, I think it was just survival. Like, both Renee and I were like, it's just right here. Like, all we can do is we're doing anything we can to survive.
Yep.
And, and everyone does what they can. Some people, may take it into drinking or whatever it is, or all I could do, my vice was, I'm just going to go out and coach and help people because I don't have to think about myself.
Right.
And I'm not saying that was the right way. That was just what I could do. Renee got into mountain biking and she got into riding her bikes, and that's what she did. And it was all we could do to just, kind of encapsulate ourselves in our verticals of just saying, okay, this is all we can do to survive.
Yeah.
And you know how it is. I mean, and you haven't even talked yet, so I'll let you talk in a second, but this is my show.
This is great. Yeah.
I always, whenever someone says, man, if there's anything I could do, and I know what they mean, I get that.
Yeah.
But I also know there's nothing they can do. And so you want to tell them, like, please don't say if there's anything you could do. Like, I almost want to start the conversation. Like, before I tell you this, please don't end this by saying, if there's anything you need, call me or whatever. Like, I get it. And it is very nice. And I try not to take away from that. And I think that's just our natural, we don't know what to say.
Right.
And I remember after Jet passed, one of my good friends, he said, man, I don't know what to say to Steve. And my other friend was there. He's like, you don't need to say anything, man. You can sit in silence.
Yeah.
It's okay just to sit in silence and not say anything. because, sometimes you just need that. You don't need to talk about it. And I think people don't like that silence. That's a very awkward moment for people.
Sure.
So welcome to my show.
It's an awkward moment for people. And then the other thing is, like, when people care about you, they don't want to see you in pain.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's normal. Like, I don't want to see you in pain. I don't want to see Rochelle in pain. I don't want to see Renee in pain. I don't want to see anybody in pain.
Yeah.
And especially if you're a guy, we're wired to fix things.
Sure.
And we can't fix this.
No.
It's physically impossible to fix it.
Yeah.
So I think, to back up real fast, I think there's a couple of things that are important. I mean, one, like, you grew up riding motorcycles. Your whole family rides motorcycles.
Correct.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're a Harley family.
Yeah.
Do the Sturgis stuff. And I mean, all of that.
It was something I knew ever since I was 10, 11 years old.
Yeah.
I rode. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's,
It was almost like a rite of passage. I mean, I remember a couple times riding with Jet, and we're riding down the highway, and I could see him in my mirror, because I was always like, hey, just be where I can see you. So I could see him in the mirror. And I thought to myself, this is the best freaking thing in the world. I'm and that memory's free.
Yeah.
It didn't cost me anything. It cost me my time and my attention, but it didn't cost me anything. And I'm like, that was the memory that I'm like, wow, like, this is going to be like, we're going to travel the country, maybe go to other continents and do this. I like was already picturing in my head, like, I'm going to take him to Sturgis. And I just was picturing all this, like, okay, this is, I think when kids are younger, to a degree that, the mother is going to take care of them and everything. And, it was getting to the time that he and I were connecting.
Yeah.
And we were kind of starting to align and get along really well. And just really, I could see that, I could see where it was going.
Yeah.
And then it just, and again, I just go back to that knock on the door. It's all of a sudden, that's it. There's no give backs. There's no, wait, what? I want to have a conversation. It's done.
Yeah.
And it's so final.
I remember, so, I mean, it was, what was it, like just a week or two or less than a month, we were there at your birthday.
My 50th birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, my birthday was the 24th, and he passed away on the 6th.
Yeah. So I'm a pretty social person, but I also have, like, my social limit. Like, my tank will go dry at some point. And that night, it was great. There were so many people there. It was so fun.
Sure.
I got to the point where I was like, all right, I got to step outside away from the crowd for a minute. And I went outside, and Jet was sitting at the fire pit with a couple friends. And so I sat down and we chatted, and, I was asking him, what he was planning on doing. And he was talking about the school in Florida for audio production. Yeah. Audio production and all that. And then, and then a few weeks later, Rochelle, she comes home crying, and I'm like, what's wrong? She's like, Jet's oh no, I was in the warehouse roasting coffee. She walked out crying, and she said, Jet's dead. And I was like, what? Yeah. And that's, dude, it's crazy that this experience happened where I had a friend who lost their son, their child. And I remember at the funeral when you gave the eulogy, and I was like, how the hell did you even do that? And then like, being at our house and sitting around the fire pit and just, crying together and all that sort of stuff. And then, 6 months later, whatever it was.
Yeah. I never forget. I remember you invited us up for Memorial Day.
Yeah.
And we came up, and Renee and I came up to your house, and I remember we were sitting there, and you and I were talking, and you're like, man, I don't know how you do it. Like, and I remember you're like, man, I don't know what I would do if that was me. And I'm like, man, I hope you never are. Like, I hope that's never you.
Right.
And I remember having that conversation, and I was like, and you're like, man, I just don't know how you could do it. I'm like, I don't either. Like, that's not even an option.
Yeah.
And, and then that happens, and you're just like, oh my gosh, like, you gotta be freaking kidding me.
I know.
I mean, yeah. So,
it's crazy. It's just, but yeah, I'm with you, and I understand. I look at it just like you do. I really try and keep an open mind and an open heart, knowing what somebody's intentions are when they say something, or even when it's like, ugh. And I think here's what I appreciate when people say, man, if there's anything I can do, if there's anything you need, like usually the people that say that like genuinely mean it.
Right.
Like if you wake up from a nightmare at 2:30 in the morning and you need me to come over,
100%.
You know, and so that's kind of where I go when somebody says something like that. But I do understand sometimes emotionally it's just like it's almost like a kick in the balls.
Well, and you know, one of the challenges that I've noticed, you know, when as a pilot, we always fly with different guys on the flight deck. So I'm sitting in the flight deck. There's 3 or 4 of us, you know, on the plane that I fly, and everyone's kind of talking, and then inevitably it goes to kids.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm just thinking, fuck, here we go. And I'm just like looking out the window thinking like, I'm just going to stay busy so that it doesn't like, cause they're like, oh, my kid's going to UT and my this and that. And I'm like, and I'm just sitting there and they're like, do you have kids? And, I tell them what happened and the whole mood, you know, obviously. Yeah. And I feel like the downer. I'm like, look, you guys asked. And I said, it's okay. I'm like, it's okay. I'm like, I'm working through it, but every time I go to work, it's like, you know, like when you work now, everyone kind of, you know, in your circle knows.
Right.
Every time I go in, I've got to reopen that wound to talk about it. And then I've got to explain. And then they're like, do you mind if I ask what happened? And then I got to go down that path again. Yeah. And I don't even know them. Like these are strangers and I don't mind doing it, but it's like, and I remember one time, and you know, as you know, Jet was our only child. I was somewhere and it was right after, it was about a month after Jet passed. And I think I was at the doctor's office or something, and it was like the nurse or something. And I remember she's like, oh, do you have any kids? And I'm like, I was just barely enough to hold it together in there. Yeah. And I was like, no, I don't. And I, as soon as it came out of my mouth, I felt, and I said that because I didn't want to have to go into this explanation with this person I didn't know. And I thought to myself, how could you say that?
Right.
Like, I was just like, I almost was like, no, I do. Then I'm like, okay, well, now I'm gonna be the weirdo that so I'm gonna go for a psychological evaluation now. But I remember that. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you can't do that. Yeah. And that was so like, it was like a lightning bolt through my body when I said that. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that came out of my mouth.
Interesting.
Yeah, I never forget that. And I was like, I will never do that again.
Wow. That's a good, that's the first time I've heard somebody say that, man.
Yeah. It was almost because I just didn't want to, I was like, I'm tired of going through this. Like, I just want to have a normal conversation with someone without breaking down in 5 minutes about the situation.
Self-defense, man.
Yeah.
You're just protecting yourself.
Yeah.
So when you have to go through that, you know, at work with the new group and, you know, everybody's talking about their kids and all, and I know it's hard. There's no doubt it's hard every single time. And I don't care how many times you say it or rehearse it, it's hard. But do you feel like it helps you at all? There's any value in it at all? Or would you just prefer to never have to say that to people?
Well,
I mean, of course you prefer to never have to say that to people, but you know what I mean.
You know, it's a unique question only because when I speak, the other thing that I do when I travel and I speak, I talk about Jet all the time.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the outlet where I talk about him there.
Got it.
When I'm here, I don't know. I don't want to say there's no value in it, but you know, if I could get away from not talking about it, I would rather. Yeah. Let's just say that, because it totally changes it's an environment of three or four pilots. That's it. And normally what I've learned recently is one of the guys or girls in the cockpit knows about the situation.
Gotcha.
So someone will say like, yeah, I was going to tell them, like, or they already knew, but they were like, so it's been long enough that a lot of people know. Or I'll run into someone, like I was in Denver at flight training, and I ran into a buddy of mine that I've known for a while. And I said, I'm not sure if you heard about my son. And he's like, yeah, man. He's like, I did. He's like, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about it or not. And I was like, no, like people that I know, yes. When you don't know anyone, literally within 5 minutes, and you're you know, throwing up all your information, because and the other reason, as a fit for duty as a pilot, Are you mentally able
Oh.
to go fly this plane now
Right.
if you're in an altered mental state? So there's a whole other factor that if I start breaking down and crying, they're going to be like, okay, it's time for you to get off the flight.
crew's like, can somebody call security?
We're going to replace you. So there's a whole other conversation with that. So it's just, I think sometimes less is better. And in that situation, that's the environment that I would say less is better.
Yeah. I would imagine too, when you're speaking, you're controlling the narrative and you're taking your story
Correct.
to turn it into something positive or to
Yes.
to make a positive story out of it.
Yeah.
When you're having to tell the history, there's really not a whole lot positive at all.
All I'm trying to do, like at least in the flight deck, it's a big joyous moment. They're all talking about their kids, and I just like put a hacksaw through it, and they're just like I'm talking about a mood killer, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, let's go fly to Tokyo for 14 hours.
Yep.
And then it's just like you could feel the awkwardness because they don't know do you want to talk about it? Do you not? It's like, I'd rather, we can, but I'm like, what do you want to know? And then they'll kind of, how did it happen? Or, and then now I'm like reliving it. Like you said, I can't control the narrative as much as I can when I'm speaking. Yeah. So it's a challenge because imagine every time you had to go call on a client and you're like having to discuss and explain this because they're like, let me show you pictures of my kids. Let me see yours.
Yeah.
And now you're like, well, and then all of a sudden it starts. Every time you show up at an appointment, you're going to go like, could I just go and not talk about it? Is that possible?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's interesting. We just went to a retreat with the TAPS program, the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, and in San Antonio. And it's a regional event, so there's like 500 people there, right? And Rochelle had a lot of anxiety, right? Because exactly what you're talking about. You get together and you meet people that you don't know. Inevitably, the question comes up, hey,
they
do
know
you
why
have kids?
Yeah.
Right? This one, I was explaining to her, I was like, look, remember, everybody there, for the most part, is in a similar situation.
Right.
They lost a child or a spouse.
Yep.
Or a dad or a
someone.
sibling.
They're there for a loss.
Yeah. And it was really cool. She went in with very high anxiety. But then after we got there, it was like, okay, I get it. And it was, there was a lot of good that came out of it for sure.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. The support and community, man, those things are.
Yeah. And I probably
huge.
have not leaned into that. To be, completely honest, I probably have not leaned into that like I could or should. And again, I think the way I'm leaning into it is I speak about him on stage or anything like that. And maybe I'm trying to create my own environment that I can control the narrative.
Sure.
I don't really know, but it could be something. I mean, I'm open to it. I just, and Renee and I have gone to grief counseling and other stuff. And it's just, certain things work, certain things don't work. And it's just, I think for different people.
I think it's also timing.
100%.
Right. So, I mean, sometimes you're just not ready for a certain experience or message or something. And then, somewhere down the road, all of a sudden it's like, oh shit.
Well, and so along those lines, when we were going to grief counseling, Renee was like, I'm not getting anything out of this.
Yeah.
And so she's like, I don't want to go back. And I'm like, okay, I understand. So I went a couple times by myself. And what she really wanted to do was go see a medium. And she'd never done it before. She had no idea. But she was like, I really want to see a medium after 1 year. She's like, I really want to see one. And her main thing was that she wanted to know if Jet was okay.
Yeah.
That was what she wanted. She's like, I just want to know if he's okay. And I don't know what your thoughts or people's thoughts on mediums. I don't really have one. I think there's a reality to that. I think there's some realism to it. And so she did. She went and saw a medium. We went and hiked Machu Picchu. And we spread some of his ashes in Machu Picchu on the Inca Trail.
Yep.
And then when we get back, she got a call. She'd been trying to track this one gentleman down that does this. And he travels the country, and he was on tour specifically for parents who lost their children.
Wow.
That's specific.
Okay.
And she was trying to track him down. He was a little bit aloof in coordinating with them. And we get back from Machu Picchu, and the next day they said, hey, if you can be in LA on Monday at 7:30 a.m., you can see him. So she's like, I'm going. I said, okay. So she gets on the first flight Monday morning. She goes and meets him. And it was very, very helpful for her in the sense that, I mean, that he said and knew some things that there's no way anyone else would not know.
Right.
I mean, she's not on social media. And so it wasn't even like, he could have looked you up, or that wasn't even possible. Well, he could have looked me up. Okay. And I'll tell you the reason why, as I go into the story, why I know that there was no gain for him.
Right.
But everything he said about her, like immediately you have to go in there with a question that you want answered. And again, I don't know if you've ever done this or looked into this.
I haven't, no.
And so you've got to go in there with something, but you don't tell him what it is. And I guess he said, if you have something of the person, bring it with you.
Okay.
And she goes and she wanted to know he was okay. And the first thing he said when they sat down and Jet entered, I guess you could say, was he basically brought up there was a motorcycle accident. And he said he was listening to music, which he was, because we found one of his ear pods. And he's like, rah, 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 rah music. And he's like, does he listen to that kind? And he was listening to a band, Lorna Shore, which is that kind of music.
Okay.
And she's like, yeah. And he wants you to know he's okay.
Wow.
Like right out of, and I don't know exactly what the words were. I'm sure Renee will tell me I said it wrong, but he was basically like, he saw it coming, and then he saw the light, the white light, and he went for the light. And he said he's not hurt. He's fine. And he didn't feel the impact. And he's totally fine.
Wow.
And she said, you know, I want some signs. Like I haven't gotten any, like, cause she's always like, sometimes I'm like, I had a dream about Jet. And she's like, I haven't had any dreams about him.
Right.
And she's like, I didn't get a sign. So, and again, I'm probably not getting this exact from the conversation, but he said, I sent you signs. He's telling, like, so he's basically talking, Jet is talking to her through him, essentially. And he said something like, I sent you people. Well, he said there was an Indian, like a Native American Indian. He said, and the guy was like, did you meet an Indian? And Renee's like, no. He's like, he said he sent an Indian. So after Jet passed, like immediately, right, the next day or two, the next morning, somebody on Facebook or something said, oh, I was at an accident last night and I gave CPR to a young man who didn't make it. So it went around and they said that was Jet.
Yeah.
So we talked to the lady and she was at Jet service and she was like, I was there. She goes, I was 2 cars behind. I saw it. She goes, I ran over and I gave him CPR and he was already gone. She's like, but I gave him CPR until the paramedics came. So basically they're saying that was the sign that he was okay. When Renee was at the site, like the next day, a guy pulls up in a truck, a Native American guy.
Okay.
And he says, you must be the mother. She's like, yeah. And he says, I was the one who pulled the bike off your son.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And he said, he didn't feel a thing. He's like, he was already gone. So she was like, oh my God. Like, there was an Indian. She did, you know.
Yeah.
And then
at the moment that it happened, it's just like,
and there was like 2 other people that had come up while we were there. Now this is not a big intersection.
right.
And 2, like during the next week or so, 2 other people while she was there had come up to her and said, I was here, I saw it. And we're like, now, mind you, I went there for the next year, almost every single morning I went there because it was on the way to or from the gym. I would make sure I would stop there.
Right.
And I never once had one person stop and tell me I was there. And I'm like, why is it when she comes, someone sees it and I don't? Because that was the message she was trying to get. And I mean, he was like, he wants to know, he wants you to take care of your knee. He's asking how your knee is. She had a knee replacement, but who would know that? And he's like, how's your knee? Take care of your knee. Like just things that you're like,
That's so crazy.
it was really, really crazy. And he said, he wants to thank you because you're helping a lot of people. with our foundation.
That's awesome.
And he said, you've helped his friends, and you've really helped his friends get through some tough times. And we have, and we still get together with his friends. And he's really, and the other thing he said is, this tattoo that he had, which I didn't like, but now I have one. But like 8 or 9 kids got this tattoo in his honor. Never had a tattoo in their life. And they got this tattoo. He said, I'm surprised so many of my friends got tattoos for me. Like,
that's crazy.
That's crazy. And there was just, it kept going with things that you're like, wow.
Yeah.
So she felt like she got permission to move forward because she felt like, even to the degree of his bedroom, all of his clothes.
Yeah.
And I think, for the people that are watching or listening, the things that people don't think about, as you know, is the gym membership shutting down, doing the taxes, the things that you're like, you don't think about that we had to do. Well, then it's his clothes. Do you honor him and keep them forever? Do you change out the bedroom? Like we didn't know. We were kind of like stuck. And he had like a red pair of Vans in the closet, and she was staring at the Vans, saying like that weekend before, like Jet, like, what do you want me to do with your stuff? Like, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
And at the reading, he said he's showing me a pair of shoes, a red pair of shoes.
Oh, jeez.
And he wants you to get rid of them. He's saying those aren't his stuff anymore. He's showing me like a full room. He wants you to get rid of them.
Wow.
That's not his stuff. He's like, and what he was saying, he's just like, the more you get rid of that stuff, he's like, that's in the past. He said, the more you get rid of that stuff and talk to him, he's right here. He's like, he's right here. Hasn't gone anywhere. He's like, he's right here with you. And so he's like, the more you get rid of that, the more he's with you. But he said, pictures and things are pictures of the past. That's not him today.
Wow.
So that gave her permission to be able to move forward with getting rid of his stuff. So we did. We called so this is I'm going to bring something up in a little bit.
Yeah.
So she called his friends and said, hey, we're going to donate his stuff to like boys' homes and stuff. Anybody wants some stuff, come get it, and we'll give you his clothes or whatever you guys want. Come get. And so his friends came over and they took some mementos. And so she did that, and she kind of cleansed the room out and stuff, and she felt much better as a result.
Yep.
I was like, and she felt like she now had permission to move on. She felt like she was in. People had said like, "Wow, you seem like you're different. You seem like you've released." And I'm still like caught up and bunched up and really feeling the guilt. And from the motorcycle, and like, maybe I shouldn't have let him get one, and maybe I should have spent more time with him, and you're microing every single thing of, wow, what if I would have done this, which I'm sure is a natural progression in the grief process. And I wanted to see the medium also, and I was like, I think I'd really like to talk to him. And of course, he was very aloof and hard to get a hold of. And just this week, they called me and they emailed me and they said, hey, could you be in Dallas? And I'm like, well, could you give me a couple days of options? And they didn't get back to me. And I said, well, I'm going to be in LA and then I'm going to be in Austin. If there's anything that I could go to Dallas, I just need to know when. Wednesday night, I'm taxiing out to go to LA. And I get an email and they say, can you be in Marina Del Rey at 8:30 tomorrow morning in LA? And I'm like, first of all, I'm like, well, you could have given me a little heads up, but yes, I can.
As a matter of fact,
I can. Mm-hmm. So I land, I get a hotel right in the area. I go see him. So this was yesterday.
Oh, wow.
So I go see him. And Renee's like, did you get the instructions? And I'm like, no, I didn't get any instructions. And she's like, so Renee's kind of giving me the play-by-play of what to say or what not to say. Don't overtalk, because I talk a lot. She's like, don't overtalk. Just answer yes or no questions. I'm like, okay. So I get there and I'm like, okay, I'm poker face. I'm not going to say anything. I don't want to give anything away.
Yeah.
Oh, and let me back up. The reason about him knowing or not knowing is he did it completely complimentary, free. he does not charge for parents who lost their kids.
Wow.
Because he lost his daughter to suicide at 14.
Shit.
And because of that, he said he was involved in ATF and child trafficking and stuff like that with the police for many, many years. And he said this is now his life because he couldn't even see that his daughter was struggling. Wow. So he does it, but for anyone who's lost their child, he does not charge. So
that's crazy.
You sit there and go, okay, well, what's the gain out of this?
Right.
It's a zero sum. He would be negative if he had to pay someone to do research on Renee and not charge.
Yeah.
So then I come and he starts off and he starts talking about, Jet's here and he's very excited. And he started off with a motorcycle. And he said, "You ride motorcycles." Now I had a full sweater on, so he couldn't see any tattoos.
Right.
And he's like, "You have tattoos of Jet," and I said, "Yeah, I do." And he said, "Okay." And I'm trying to remember a lot of the stuff he said because it was a lot. And he said, "You have a foundation." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Jet is so excited at how much you're helping people." So I'm going to tell you something that he said, and I thought of you instantly. He said, now he doesn't know anything about me. He goes, "Do you know what a podcast is?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You're going to be on a podcast very soon." He goes, "And it's going to change a lot of lives."
Oh, fuck. Wow.
I get chills. And I'm like,
I just got chills.
I'm just sitting there. And he goes, "You are going to change a lot of lives because of this podcast that you're going to be on."
Mm.
And I'm like, okay. He goes, "You are going to become an advocate for people that have lost their children."
Mm.
He goes, "I see you." He goes, "I see you speaking in front of crowds." He goes, "Have you ever spoken in front of crowds?" And I'm like,
As
yeah.
a matter of fact.
I didn't say anything. I said, I didn't say anything. And I said, yeah. He goes, "Jet is telling me how proud he is of you speaking in front of people." He said, "I see you speaking in front of a lot of men." He goes, "And you're going to help a lot of men who've lost their children."
Man.
And he goes, "You're going to write a book." I said, "Okay." He goes, "You may co-write the book with someone." And that's when I thought of you. And he goes, "It's going to be on the loss of how you deal with the loss of a child."
Mm.
He goes, and he must have said, "Write a book" at least 4 times during our conversation. He's like, "You are going to author a book about this." He's like, "You are going to become a public figure." And he just kept coming back to it. I mean, like literally, he goes, I know I keep coming back to this, but he goes, that image keeps coming back to me. He goes, "I see you in front of a lot of people." He said, "You are going to become," he goes, "not just a person who talks about it." He goes, "You're going to become a force in this world." He goes, "The reason," he goes, he said, "I hope this doesn't come out wrong," but he goes, "The reason Jet was here and the reason Jet left is to put you on this path to help people." And I was just like, he goes, "I was put on a path after my daughter passed away." He goes, "It's to help people." He goes, "You are on a," he goes, I it's very rare that I see this, but he goes, "When you walked in the room, there was something about you." He goes, "You are on a path to help people." And he said, "You were going to write a book. You were going to be speaking about this. You are going to be building the foundation." He goes, "You are going to get some CEOs to help you with this foundation." And he said, "You're going to meet a football player, a very big he goes, gridiron, because he's from Australia. He goes, "You're going to meet a gridiron football player. And this person is going to become very influential in helping you with your son's foundation." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And again, you're not supposed to say anything. So I'm just like not saying anything. And I'm like,
Right.
I kind of want to tell him, but he goes, "You may even have," he goes, you are going to be on a lot of podcasts in the future." He goes, 2025 is going to be a focus for what you're doing. He goes, "And I don't know what you do." He goes, "But this is going to become a big part of your life." And he goes, you are going to help a lot of people." He goes, "And you are going to," he said, "I see you on motorcycles doing a tour about your book."
Oh, shit.
And he said, "Your son traveled all over the world." He said he was a world. He goes, "He didn't just travel." He goes, "He was a world traveler." And I said, "Yeah, he was." And he said, but he says that like, you're not doing that now. Like you've stopped doing that. Like you're kind of bunched up. And he's like, you're knotted in your stomach with guilt. And I said, yeah. I said, well, I still travel as a pilot, but I don't travel vacation. And he's like, he wants you to travel. He's like, that's his spirit. He's like, you showed him that life and then you stopped it. And he goes, that's not what he wants. Yeah. He's like, he wants you to keep going. He's like, he wants you, the trajectory you're on of helping people is because of him. Like he's like, he goes, I think a lot of things are preordained in our life. Mm-hmm. He goes, he wants you, and he would bounce back and forth. He's like, he wants you to know that day was destined to happen no matter what you were going to do. There's nothing that you could have done to stop that day from happening for him. Yeah. He's like, that was his destiny. But because of that, this is your destiny now. And he's like, you are going to help people. And he said, you are going to be on a podcast. And he goes, there's podcast is going to change a lot of people. He goes, it's going to get you a lot of attention to help a lot of people. And I recorded it. I'll let you listen to it. Like, I was just like, I said, well, actually, I am going to be on a podcast tomorrow with a friend of mine. And he goes, that's the one.
Oh shit.
He goes, that's what he said. I mean, literally, he goes, that's the one that keeps popping up. He goes, it's going to be real soon. And I was like, well, I'm going to be in one tomorrow.
Crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
And so then he started talking about, he's like, you are going to help a lot of people. He goes, as a matter of fact, he goes, you've helped his friends. He's very thankful. He said, and not just one. He said, you've helped several of his friends. I said, yeah. He goes, like a group of them? I said, yeah. He goes, but there's a few that you've helped specifically. And I said, yeah. So one of his real best friends, good friends, Chris, he's become very close with Renee and I. And, like I take care of his cell phone. I got him a gym membership. He works out. I work out with him at the gym.
Awesome.
He was one of the scholarship recipients for the foundation. We recently got in touch with, and we can talk about the scholarship if you want. But we recently got in touch with a guy who's in the automotive world. I guess it's called an ASE, some type of certification process.
Sure.
And he's in charge of all the ASE. I don't know if it's just for Texas or all over the U.S. And he lives in Lake Jackson. So Renee and I met him. And he's like, I want to help any way I can. He's like, what you guys are doing is amazing.
That's
and he's
so
like,
cool.
Like we could talk to the people at Toyota and other things to help with the foundation. And we're like, whatever you can do would be great. So everything that he was saying was aligning with the foundation and helping people. And you're just like, wow, like at some point there's got to be a reality of saying, okay, maybe there's something to this. And again, at the end of this, he wouldn't take any money. I said, can I donate to your foundation? He said, nope, I don't allow it. He said, this is completely free because this is just my way of giving back. And this is what I do. He's like, you're going to give back. He goes, everyone gives back. Everyone has a skill, but he said, this is what I do. He's like, you're going to do what you do. So yeah, there's something to the medium thing, I would say.
Dude, I think there's two things. And Rochelle, ever since talking to Renee, she's been reaching out to try and track this guy down for sure, which I think is great.
Yeah.
But I look at it and I mean, it's easy to poo-poo on that stuff, but then there's also, it's like, okay, there are certain things that happen that are unexplainable.
100%.
Then you throw in the fact that there's nothing for him to gain.
Exactly.
It makes it really hard.
Yeah. I mean, if I paid him $10,000 to do this, I could see that.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, even if he looked me up and saw some information about me, okay, he could probably gather some stuff, but he's like, have you gotten any coins? I said, no. He goes, you're going to get some coins. He said, that's Jet talking to you. He goes, you're going to see some coins. He said, so be on the lookout for coins. and one of the things he told Renee, he said, you're going to get a feather. He said, you got a feather.
Oh, yeah.
You heard about that?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you heard, but after the feather, I was at leaving a hotel in Northern California, and I'm checking out, and I look down on the floor, and there's a huge feather just stuck to a chair. And I'm like, and there's nothing else around except this feather on its own.
Yeah.
So I take a picture of it, I send it to Renee, and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, is that Jet showing me it's just, there's some things that you could say, oh, what, maybe. He said, the guy, oh, that was the other thing. When Renee, hiked the Grand Canyon, I didn't have my sunglasses. I was like, oh, I can't. Oh, no, they broke. My sunglasses broke. I'm like, hey, let's go into a store and grab some cheap sunglasses. So it's, tourist shop. So I'm trying on some sunglasses and I get some cheap sunglasses. And the guy goes, you were just trying on some sunglasses. He goes, he's showing me you putting on and off sunglasses. And I'm like, yeah. He goes, he was there with you. And I'm just like that is, how random is that?
That's random, yeah.
It's not like I was wearing them you know what I mean? I'm just like, so there's just some things that he says that you're just like how would he know the type of music he listens to?
Right.
There was just so many things that, and he says like, Jet says you eat too fast. You eat your food too fast. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, you need to enjoy it more. And I do. Like, he's like, you don't really, food is just a tool for you. It's not for enjoyment, which is true. I'm just like, protein powder or whatever it is. So there's just some things that you're like, okay, like again, what would he gain from saying that? He could have been way off. And I'm like, no, not at all. But he wasn't. And it was just really interesting.
You know what's kind of fascinating? So, I'm sitting on this side of the table and listening to all these little pieces of the puzzle. You dove into staying busy.
Yeah.
And the way you stayed busy was by coaching people and helping entrepreneurs with their businesses and all that sort of stuff. Now, this guy's telling you you're going to help so many people. It's almost like it was training for what is coming next.
It's funny you say that because that was the one thing he said. He said, the turmoil you're in is for something that's coming. And he said, what you're doing right now is for the future. He basically said kind of like this is practice for what's coming for you.
That's crazy.
Yeah, very, very much. And, and even, Renee and I had the conversations of, I'm gone all the time. I'm busy. And it's like, I know, and I can't explain it. Like, you almost feel guilty, but I'm like, I just feel compelled, to go do this. I don't know why. And just like she had said for her, it's like, I almost, from leaving there, and again, this was yesterday, so it's very fresh and it felt like a fire hose, but it's almost like I got permission from Jet saying, this is what you're supposed to do. Like, you have permission to go do this. This is what you're supposed to do. And he's like, this is the path. He's like, look, this is the path that you need to go on. He's like, you need to do this. And it was very interesting because it seemed like he was very, not forceful, but saying like this is why you're here.
Yeah, dummy, wake up.
Yeah, like you're on this ride whether you want to be or not. Basically, was kind of the way he said it. And like I said, I recorded it to just say like it's not me saying this. Like this was him saying it. And again, I didn't tell him anything. I just yes, no, that's all it was. But just talk about a podcast. And you're going to be on one very soon. Like I could have been maybe on a podcast, but maybe not one like this.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. Dude, so we're writing a book together and we're riding motorcycles around the country. Right. And about the bikes, I have not ridden since Jet passed away.
Right.
And I asked him, I said, can you ask him about riding? I go, if he thinks that I should ride again. And he said, absolutely. He wants you to ride again. He's like, that's the spirit that you like. He's like, you raised him to have this adventurous spirit. And after he's gone, you lost it. Yeah. And he's like, he's living right there with you. He's like, he's with you in that spirit. He's like, don't give it up. He's like, and so it really was like, wow, okay. Like, again, you don't know, like, am I being selfish by writing again? Is that dumb? But he's like, no, he's like, he wants you. Like, that's his spirit. He's like, you showed him that life.
It's so crazy. Because that makes sense.
It does.
Right. Obviously he would want you to do that. He would want, but I don't know if you feel the same way. My guess is you probably do. And a lot of other people do too. I know me personally, like sometimes if I'm happy or having fun, I feel guilty.
Totally. Like, yeah, I especially, when going away on vacation, not as much work, but if Renee and I would go on a trip or go on vacation and we come back, it's like, as soon as we get off the plane, you're like, oh, like you're back into that zone of like, oh, we shouldn't have really gone on vacation and had a good time. Like what are we crazy? Like, what are we doing? Yeah. Like we lost our son. And 100%. I mean, you're laughing and all of a sudden just something sparks that memory. And you're like, oh, and you just kind of sink in that stomach. You still have the smile on because you're with a bunch of people, but inside I just feel like I'm just dying inside, just going like, what am I doing? Like, and yeah, you think that that's the respectful thing. Like I need to honor him. And what he's saying is the opposite. He's like, no, that's not what they want. He's like, he's right here. He's like, and like he said, he told me, he's like, the more you do that, the more you talk to him, the more he will be there. The other thing he told me is he said, you need to start meditating. And I've tried. He goes, you will talk to him when you meditate. He said, when you meditate, you will talk to him. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay. I'm like, I've tried it before, but I haven't been very successful. He's like, no. He's like, now do it with the purpose of talking to Jet. And I don't know what your take is on that, but I'd never heard about that before. But he's like, yes, you will talk to him. He's like, and he told me too, he said, he came to you in a dream. He goes, that wasn't a dream. That was him. Mm. And I'm like, I've had dreams, but nothing. He's like, it was a pretty substantial dream. He goes, or he will. Yeah. And that's when he said, if you need to start meditating because he will be there when you meditate. So he's like, these are the ways that he will talk to you.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack, but it gave me some, I feel better. I talked to Renee, after, and, it's a lot. It's like drinking from a fire hose because you're trying to get it. And he said, record it because there's going to be things I say that don't make sense now. And a month from now or 2 weeks from now, it'll click. And so he gave me his number and he texted me. He said, he told me, this is something that's very weird. He said, Limp Bizkit. I'm like, okay. He goes, you're going to hear a song from Limp Bizkit. That's Jet reaching out to you. He's like, did Jet like Limp Bizkit? And I'm like, no, not really. He goes, there's a song from Limp Bizkit you're going to hear. He goes, he just told me he's Limp Bizkit. So I'm like, okay, like, didn't think about it. He goes, it's going to be soon. He goes, it's going to be soon. He goes, just be on the lookout for the song. He goes, it'll mean something. I'm like, okay. So, I've got a social media person that does my social media. So the reason I was there was to get a tattoo for Jet. So that was Jet's drawing that I put on. That was his actual drawing as a kid that he drew. Awesome. And that was a drawing. So I got these tattoos for Jet. Yeah. And I said, well, and I told him, I said, that's why I'm here. Yeah. And Jet's cousin, who he never met, wanted a tattoo also for Jet. Okay. So he came and I said, if you come, I'll get you the tattoo. And he's 20 years old. And so he came and we both got tattooed for Jet. He wanted that. So we both got that tattoo for Jet yesterday. And I told the medium, I said that this is actually why it happened to be in LA. Yeah. Is for the tattoo. And so after I was done, I had all these pictures from getting the tattoo of him getting his first one and mine. So I sent it to my social media person. I said, hey, can you make a reel and post this on social media? Just that's all I said. Get a reel, post on social media. I saw it, yeah. You saw it. Mm-hmm. Did you?
I didn't have sound on. It's Limp Bizkit.
This morning, I'm going to the airport and I go, oh, she posted it. And it's going and I'm like, oh, I click on it. And it's Limp Bizkit. And I'm like, I didn't say, and I looked at the message, like, did I say Limp Bizkit? I didn't say it. I look at the lyrics of the song and I forget which song it was. The lyrics are more to me about, it's kind of like, and I screenshot it and I sent it to Omar, the medium. I said, hey, I got the song from Limp Bizkit. I go, but I think the message is to me, it wasn't to Jet. I think it was Jet giving me a message. And the message was the song, and I'll show you the screenshot later. It was really like about like, you've got to get out and live your life and don't care what other people think. And that was like the lyrics. And I'm like, this is to me. Wow. This isn't like, I thought it was going to be like something like some sentimental song, Remembering Jet. Yeah. It was more of confirming. And I'm just like, okay, like what? At some point, that's pretty coincidental. Yeah. And I was just like, wow. At some point, all these coincidences align. Yeah. So another thing.
That's crazy.
So they're going to be the inaugural band at our book writing.
The first book signing.
At the book signing.
Hey, look, I hope that he's right about this podcast changing people's lives in a big way. I mean, look, that's from the very beginning. I've always said that it's partially therapy for me. Sure. Right. Obviously, it's partially honoring Connor.
Yep.
But then the other thing is, I really, I wanted the playbook for grief. I wanted the 12-step program. I searched for it. And obviously, we know it doesn't exist.
No.
There is no such thing.
No.
It's different for everybody.
Yeah.
And so, when I told Rochelle I was going to do this podcast, and after we did the first few interview episodes, I started getting messages from people that I didn't know at all.
Wow.
And look, this podcast isn't huge by any stretch, but it grows every single episode.
That's awesome.
I mean, every single one. But the number of messages that I get from people that I have no clue who they are, that are like, thank you, this person or this thing that they said, was so impactful. It's crazy.
Yeah. And one of the things he told me, he said, for every person that you talk to, you affect several dozen. So I remember he said that yesterday. So this is a case in point, right? You talk to one person and you're affecting, or one person hears it and it affects it. And, the one thing I've learned about like the social media world is, I'll be at an event and, the social media, everyone knows about you, or they know your history. And I talk about Jet a lot on social media.
Right.
As you do with the Connor and the challenges and everything, which is awesome. And it's, you get that, like all of a sudden I'm talking to someone and I can see someone standing off to the side waiting to talk to me.
Yeah.
And I know, I'm like, oh, he's going to talk to me. I know what he's going to talk about. And I'm kind of like, okay, let me change my state and get ready for what he's going to say. Yeah. And it's, I was at a roofing conference and this guy was just standing there respectfully waiting on the side. And I was talking to a couple people and I turned to talk to him. He goes, look, man, you don't know me. He goes, but I've been following you with the loss of your son for like the last year and a half. And he's like, you have taught me to be a better person to my kids. And he's like, just watching what you go through has made me be a better parent. He's like, he was like, I want to tell you I'm sorry, but I also want to thank you.
Yeah.
And he goes, because I didn't realize that I could be this person. And he's like, just seeing the pictures. He's like, I didn't know your son, obviously. He's like, I won't know him, but he's like, I just want to thank you. So you don't know. My point is you have no idea who's seeing these and who you're affecting with this podcast show. You may go, no one's even listening. Well, you'd be surprised. Like, they're, and it may not be immediate, you know, but yes, I agree. I think everyone hears that message when they're ready. And, I'm sure this message is going to get out there and grow, especially after this one.
Well, duh, apparently. That's, yeah. So when you texted me and said, oh, he said this thing that made me, I was like, okay, you're just effing with me now because you want to keep me in suspense.
Yeah.
But no, that's pretty profound, man.
The fact that he said it about this show, I mean, it was very specific.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Man, I hope Rochelle connects with this guy, and I'm fascinated, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I have to come up with what it is that I want to know.
Right.
Why I would want to do this.
Yeah.
And I don't know the answer to that question yet, but I'm going to start thinking about it for sure.
Yeah. And honestly, like I didn't know. I was like, I need to figure out how to move past. Like I'm stuck.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to get unstuck. And just like, and I remember telling Renee, like, I'm always sad. Like I'm always like, I go speak at events and I'm the loneliest person there because I see other people and I'm just like, man, like, and Jet was our only child and we're like, well, we'll never have grandkids, never see him get married, never, and you're just like, you go down this dark hole. But now I'm looking at it as, okay, how many people can I help now?
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to look at it as Jet was here to help me. So I'm trying to reframe. I didn't know what I needed, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I just knew I wanted to talk to him. And I think I'll probably go and talk to him again, and maybe this is an every year or something of figuring out how to connect with Jet more. And listen, even if it's all BS and even if it doesn't mean anything, if it gets me through the day better and it makes me feel more accomplished, is it wrong?
No.
You know what I mean? Like if they're like, oh, he's a scam, this and that. You know what? If I walked out of there a better person than I walked in, is he really doing me any harm?
Right.
I'm like, okay, so why is that a bad thing? And again, it was free. If he doesn't value his time and he does all of that for nothing, the other people he charges as a regular medium.
Right.
just for parents who lost their children, he does not charge.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. That adds a whole nother dimension to the story for sure.
It does. It does.
Well, there is something I wanted to back up. And then I want to get into the foundation for sure. That's super, super important because it's so cool. I think it's important for me to hear you say this, but I think it's important for other people who are going through a grieving process and immediately they're like, I just need to stay busy, right? Keep my mind occupied. Because I know for me, when I'm in my car and like the radio's not on and I'm just driving, like that's when emotions just hit me. So I'm like, all right, I got to play the radio. I got to listen to a podcast. I got to go to the gym. I got to stay busy. I got to go to work. I got to, whatever it is, I got to do something.
Yeah.
And that's not abnormal. I think the message that I want to put out there is like, that 100%. Is not abnormal at all. But also some of the most profound moments that I've had are when I just let, when I am by myself and it's quiet and I just let that emotion just beat the shit out of me.
Yeah. And
it only lasts, for a brief period of time, but then all of a sudden when it's all done.
Yeah, I think I go back to that term, sitting in the silence. And I think sometimes it's okay. Like sometimes we're afraid of that silence or the darkness. And I'm starting to realize it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's actually cathartic in a way. So yeah, I would agree. Listen, I think we run from it in the beginning because it's like, I just don't want to address it. And I still, I'm trying to figure it out. And I honestly, it's weird because you're seeing me right after seeing this guy, but I do feel a lot better because I feel like, okay, now I have at least some direction of what to do or permission to say it's okay to do what I've been feeling like I want to do, like go out and speak more and help. But now I need to do it more intentionally.
Yeah.
And so I just think that whatever happens when you're in that silence and, listen, being an entrepreneur, I used to like write my I am statements and do all these things every day. And after Jet passed, I stopped.
Yeah.
The only thing I did for Jet after he passed, and I did it for 1 year, every single day, is I wrote to him every day. And I had a notebook with me and I would write like half a page. And I took that freaking book everywhere in the world. I remember I was in Istanbul, Turkey, and I'm writing to him in the morning. And every morning, the first thing I did is I wrote to him. And I would just talk to him. And I did it for a year. Yeah. And I said, I'm going to do it for a year and I'm never going to miss a day. And I didn't. And after 1 year, I said, okay, Jet, like I've had you with me and I've talked to you. And we've had a lot of conversations and you've been all over the world with me. And now it's time that I start moving forward with you, but moving forward with you, and not writing. And that was just a decision I made that I was going to do that. And so it was, my point is it was a progression. And I always say this and sometimes it's very hard for me to say it about Jet, but talking about books, I think our lives are like a book, right? And books are made up of chapters. Chapters begin and chapters end. Our high school years are a chapter. There's a beginning and there's an end. Military for you was a chapter, beginning and end. Unfortunately, I never thought of my son's life as a chapter. And I never thought I would see the end of that chapter.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you and I and other people who've lost their children have bookended the lives of our children. So that chapter's ended. And it sounds very, sterile to say it that way. But in a way, that there's some truth to that. And there's some truth to saying that was the chapter of Jet. That was a chapter of Connor.
Yeah.
Now we've taken that, and because of this, now you are helping people in your way, and I'm helping people. So maybe that chapter bled into this chapter now as a result. And I think a lot of times, we carry things in chapters over. Like, you got the high school friend that always talks about football even to this day. Right. You're like, okay, dude, that chapter's over. Like, stop talking about it.
You remember that game?
Yeah, do you remember? And that, so that's a bad way. But I think this way of closing the chapter and using it, not forgetting, but using that to start the new chapter, it's kind of like a book that builds on from other things. That's how I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly, but that's how in my mind I'm thinking about this, what we're going through of like, okay, again, I just never thought that his life would be a chapter. I never thought, as you did, that Connor, that we would see the end of that chapter. They're supposed to see the end of our chapter.
Right.
And so we go, well, that's not the way our books are written. Our books are written this way. And we have, every day is a blank page. And we get to write what we want on that page. We determine, when we wake up, you and I and everyone in the world, we determine what we're going to write on that page every day. And is it going to be a good page or is it going to be a bad page?
Right.
And you and I are choosing to move forward with our kids, just like many people do, the best way that we can.
Yeah.
And so to answer your question, about the busyness, I think we have to deal with it on a day-to-day basis when we turn that page and start writing that book page that day.
Yeah.
That's the only way. And we know it doesn't get easier at all. It gets more numb. I remember the grief counselor said, she's like, it's like you've lost a leg. That leg will never grow back. It won't hurt after a while and you'll get used to walking without that leg.
Right.
But the leg is always gone and it will never come back. And as harsh as that sounded to me, I thought it was like, oh, you're going to heal. You guys are going to be, and it was like, no, like that leg will never come back. You will never be running on two legs again.
Yeah.
So to answer that, I don't know the answer, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, I brought you here for answers.
Yes. And I've been doing very poorly at that.
Yeah. We might as well just end this now.
I'm talking theories.
Let's talk about the Live Like Jet Foundation.
Sure. So when Jet was in high school, he was a welder. And when he got out, he wanted to do CNC machining. And for his first concept was going to be doing it for NASCAR. And his friends were in welding. And I remember asking him, I said, hey, Jet, how many of your friends are going off to welding school? And he said, maybe one or two. And I said, oh, how come? And he goes, well, they can't afford it. Mm. And I said, well, why not just like financial aid or scholarships or whatever? He said, oh, they don't give financial aid for the tech schools. I was like, really? And I didn't think anything of it. It's like, oh, that sucks.
Right.
And, we were looking at putting Jet there in the CNC, and then he looked at the music production. He passed, and I started talking to Jet's welding teacher from high school who spoke at his service. And I said, is that true? He's like, yeah. He's like, it's not really afforded to them. So again, after your child passes, you want to have some sort of remembrance for him. So we were like, okay, we're gonna start a foundation, a nonprofit, specifically for high school kids who cannot afford trade school. And that was kind of the concept. So we went to the lawyers and we got everything set up and funded and everything. And we just from me speaking, I would talk about Jet and I would say, the trade industry, welding, HVAC, electrical, automotive mechanic. It's something that we all need every day, but it's something that society doesn't really support. The educational system doesn't support them, right. But yet we need them. And when you really think of like a plumber, I don't remember the recession, them giving discounts, so if you can build a business around plumbing, you can be very, very successful.
Sure.
If you go to school for, psychology, you may not have as good of a run because you're in a competition with a lot of people. And I don't know how many of those jobs exist. I have no idea. So we started this foundation specifically to help kids who cannot afford trade school to help support them. To date, so this would be the second year, we've put 6 kids through school.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we figured the first round of kids should be the actual kids who couldn't go.
Right.
So 3 of the kids, we gave them they had to, obviously we talked to them and we got them the scholarship. So 3 of them went. This year we've got 3 more. So those 3 are all in automotive school. So they're all in automotive mechanic school. This year, one of them is going to be a pilot. One of them, a girl, she's in diesel mechanic school in Wyoming. And then another kid, he's in welding.
Okay.
And so, it's just something that it seems to keep moving forward. And, we're just trying to do the right thing to help. At the bottom line is what we're trying to do. We make 0 out of it. We probably lose money on it. But we get donations from people who want to donate to help help the trades. And, everybody at some level either is related to someone in the trades or can relate to the fact that, yeah, this is necessary.
Yeah.
So it's been good and it helps us. It really does. There's probably some selfish reasons for it, for us to be able to say, okay, we're doing something to keep Jet's honor alive, because, even people at the school, they know him, but as those kids cycle through, they're not going to know him.
Sure.
He'll have a name on the plaque on the wall of a child who passed. But other than that, this is our way of keeping him alive and doing the best we can to honor him. I don't know where it'll go. I don't know how big it'll get. I don't know anything, but right now it's helping us and it's helping kids at the same time.
I think they call that a win-win.
I would definitely say it's a win-win.
Or an equitable trade.
I would say so. It's one of those things that
equitable interaction, or whatever the term is.
We can say that. We can coin that. We'll coin that term. But yeah, it's something that we're and that this is where the medium came in and said, you're changing these kids' lives. He goes, whatever you're doing with your foundation, you have changed the trajectory of these kids' lives that would never have this ability. You're giving them careers and you're giving them opportunity.
Yep.
So without you guys, they would not have this. So, you feel good. We meet their parents and they're like, thank you so much. We're really sorry, for your loss. And no, it's okay. Like, we're doing this for your son or your daughter. We want to help.
Yeah.
And our only agreement with them is, listen, if you start, you are going to finish. That's the deal. There's no, I'm going to stop. That doesn't work for us.
Yep.
If you need something, if you need money, if you need anything, you let us know. But if you started, if you take the money, you are not quitting. So don't even, if this is a slight chance, don't even do it.
Yep.
And so far, they've all been really good. And these are, the trades are 9-10 month programs, 1 year programs.
Sure.
But they're not cheap. I mean, to put a kid through automotive school for 9 months was almost $45,000.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, to be a mechanic at Toyota or Lexus, they've got to go through a school like this. So it's not an inexpensive for, so for a kid to come up with that without financial aid, I don't know how they would do that. So it's like, well, no wonder you guys are, there's no financial aid. I mean, they could do payments, I guess, at some level, but by the time they get out of school, they've got to be paid off. So again, we're trying to fill a void and help. Mm-hmm. And selfishly, I think it helps us just as much.
Yeah. Well, I think anybody that would say there's something wrong with that probably has something wrong with them.
Yeah. And you were thinking of doing something for Connor, right?
Yeah. I feel like it's, one of the natural progressions to consider some sort of foundation. I talked to Rochelle about this after the retreat from last weekend. That the TAPS organization that reached out to us. And I just had one of the dads on the episode who said that the men's retreat that we went on was like life-changing for him. That pulled him out of a really bad place, which is really cool. We went to this retreat and I met the founder, Bonnie of TAPS, and they threw out some information, and one of the things is it costs like $10 million a year.
Wow.
To run that organization. It's a national organization. And I was like, if we do a foundation, this is what I want to raise money for. I want to raise money for a program like TAPS or another program that helps families who have lost their loved ones who served in the military.
Yeah.
Because I told the story. The guy from TAPS, Rich, that they basically get a list, and it just comes in. And I can't remember what the number of people every year that they get a list, into this program. And it's somebody who died, on the battlefield. It's somebody who committed suicide. It's somebody who died in an accident. It's, somebody who died of cancer. They're all deaths of somebody who was serving. It was a massive number. Like when they said that number, I was like, what?
Wow.
It's crazy. And I think it was probably 5 or 6 phone calls that I got from this guy, Rich. I listened to the first message. Rich Cliff with TAPS, this is what the program does, and we're terribly sorry about Connor, and and he's somebody who his son he was killed in Afghanistan 16 years ago, I think it was, something like that. So everybody that's involved in the program has been through a loss like this. And he called me like 4 or 5 more times after that, and I was just like, I wouldn't even listen to the message. I was just like, delete. Right. I was like, I don't know this person. Right. And then one day I'm driving, and he calls while I'm driving, and I see his number pop up. I'm like, all right, look, I'm just going to take this call and finish this. Yeah. And I'm so glad that I picked up that call that time. I mean, it is just being involved in the online group, and all of a sudden, listening to other people who are in the same position, right? And then after going to the men's retreat, I was just like, okay. And then this regional event, and they do a national event in DC every year too. Wow. And they have multiple regional events all over the country. It's just like, it's so meaningful, man. And it's so important. And it was crazy. I told you Rochelle had a bunch of anxiety in this. Mm-hmm. And you get into these groups, and it's uncomfortable to start sharing things or saying things.
You don't know them. And
yeah. And in one session that we were in, and I was like blown away, they asked a question. I don't even remember what the question was, but Rochelle immediately chimed in, boom, and I was like, oh, babe, I'm proud. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we go to breakfast the next morning, and, there's just community tables all over the place, and you just sit down at a table with somebody you don't know. And, sometimes you have a conversation, and sometimes, you pretend like the other person's not even there.
Sure.
Depending on how you feel that day or how they feel that day. But one of the women that was at the table looked at Rochelle and said, I am so glad that you sat down at this table. What you said yesterday is exactly how I feel and what I'm going through. And it was so refreshing to hear somebody else say that.
Wow.
And it was just like, whoa. Yeah, it's just to me, it's important. Like, that's where, if I'm going to when I do something like this, that's where I want to put my effort, for sure.
That's awesome. I thought you were going to say that she's the club leader now.
Yeah.
She's been nominated.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, who knows? And that's why I've got questions about, starting a nonprofit and all that for you. So we'll chat about that.
No, absolutely. Can we sell our books at this event, the national? I'm just curious for the launch.
Only if all the money gets donated to,
of course,
the BPOS Foundation and the Live Like Jet Foundation.
100%. Okay. 100%. Limp Bizkit will play our opener, our stage opener too.
Oh my gosh, Limp Bizkit. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the BPOS, jeez. You're on the BPOS, by the way.
BPOS.
Yeah. On the Live Like Jet Foundation, how can people learn about that, get information?
Yeah, so they can, we have a website. It's Live Like Jet, J-E-T-T, livelikejet.com, livelikejet.org.
Okay.
There it talks about Jet and, all the places he's been and traveled and everything. And then if anyone wants to donate, whether it's $1 or $5 or $500, whatever it is.
Right.
I've done some events, and people have donated. I did an event, my good friend, Tarl, they did an event and they donated all the money and raised like $130,000 in 2 days at this event. It was, it floored me. They did an auction of some of the big speakers and stuff. And so, and again, it all goes to, we just look at how many kids we can put through school as a result of that. And
That's
was
awesome.
Yeah. And it really, it floors you, when you get people that do that and they don't even know me. They obviously don't know Jet, but they feel the pain and they want to help. And I tell people, if you want to help, I say this respectfully, sometimes we can be selfish people because, we say we want to help, but we don't actually do it. Right. So this is a matter of being selfless. And this is a matter of saying, okay, I am going to help someone. I don't know them. I may never meet them, but I'm going to help them. And this little piece, is going to change their life in a huge way.
Yeah.
Maybe donating $5 or $500, it may not change your life, but I guarantee you, it's going to change them. This is actually going to, you know, at least for this foundation for Jet, this is actually going to kids that is going to give them a skill set to go create a career for themselves.
Yeah.
There's a clear line on that, you know? So yeah, so if anybody wants to go to the website, livelikejet.com. And again, anything that people can donate is always appreciated. And it is 100% goes to the kids.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is interesting when you think about it. Because the kid is motivated.
Yes.
Right. They're trying to figure out what they're going to do in life.
Mm-hmm.
And they've done the research, you know, they've found their track, they've done the research, but then they don't have the money to do it. So where would they go from there?
Well, and that's the challenge. And, you know, when the school asked me if I would come speak and so they had me speak to the kids in the trade school. And I said, sure, whatever you want to talk about the foundation. And so I really didn't know what to say as far as this, but I said, well, I'm just gonna talk. So we showed a video of Jet, just talks about Jet's life, and it's called Live Like Jet because of the way Jet lived. And so and the principals were the counselors, the higher ups were all there, and there's probably like maybe 30, 40 kids there. And I just said, listen, I said, you guys are all seniors. And a year from now, when this is done, you guys are going to go out into the real world and be adults. And there's not going to be a counselor here, and there's not going to be a teacher here telling you what to do. And I said, you have to make decisions based on what you feel is in your best interest. And I said, right now, you may have teachers or counselors telling you that your best interest may be going to college. And that may be. I went to college. I'm an airline pilot. My wife went to college. She's an engineer. So we understand college. College was not right for Jet. Jet did not want to go to college, and we respected that. And we said, you know what? That's fine, Jet. What do you want to do? Yeah. And he said, I want to be a welder. I want to work with my hands. And we said, okay, well, let's go down that path. And I said, you may have people telling you, and this is where I wasn't sure how this was going to go. I said, you may have people telling you that you need to go to college, but that may not be your path.
Right.
And you may not know what that path is, but maybe a trade may be your path. Because I'm telling you, someone who went to college, and my wife who went to college, who has a master's degree, we're telling you that college may not be for everyone.
Yeah.
So when you leave here, you are going to be an adult, and you are going to have to make adult decisions. So you make a decision that's right for you, not that's right for your teacher, not that's right for your counselor, but for you. Because when you walk out of here, not only do you have to live with your decisions, but you're going to have to live with that debt. And I said, so it's just something to think about it. And I said, listen, I don't think trade schools are for everyone.
Right.
I don't think college is for everyone. But I think the one thing that we all have, and the one thing we all get to do, is have our decisions. And I'm just letting you know that you have a decision to make. So, and I said a couple other things, and I thought, oh, this is going to go either really good, or they're going to say, like, never come back again.
Yeah.
So when I was done, the principal or whoever, the counselor, comes up and she goes, you should speak publicly. You were very good. I said, so thanks. Because I didn't tell them
My
anything.
medium said that too.
Yeah, I keep hearing that. I'm writing a book. And so I said, thanks. She's like, would you come back and speak to the whole senior class next year?
Wow.
I said, I would love to. I said, absolutely. I said, was that okay? She's like, that was awesome. She's
That's
like,
great.
You're an airline pilot, someone who went to college. Like, you're not saying don't do it. You're not like you're not coming in from the trade industry saying do a trade. You're saying make a decision. She's like, we've never really had anyone come in and do that. So they want me to come back, and maybe that's something that's my calling, to go speak to high school kids about what they want to do. Whether it doesn't have to be for Jets Foundation, but just give them the concept that you have decisions to make. You have decisions coming your way. Staying at your parents' house for the rest of your life is not the option that they probably want, and probably not the option you want. And you're an adult. And I'm just telling you how it is when you want to be an adult. There's adult decisions that have to be made. So I've had some people say, like, you should go speak at schools. I'm like, I would love to. I don't know how that process works, but it's something that I would like to explore for sure. And maybe with the medium now giving that mindset, maybe it's something I dig a little more into just to give back.
Yeah. How does that work with you having that 100 yards from a school?
Well, it's very hard. I have a megaphone.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yes,
All right.
I do it driving back and forth.
Oh my God. All right. Well, we're going to, I feel like
before it goes south.
Yeah. We should probably end this right now before we really digress. And people are like, okay, everything was good until these guys started riffing. Yeah.
And the moon.
Dude, thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad we were able to pull this together.
Yeah.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. I'm so sorry.
Same.
That we're in this position. I'm so sorry that you and Renee are in this position. Rochelle and I genuinely know exactly how you guys feel.
Yeah.
But man, the fact that you're, taking this and, in your own way, in your way, in Renee's way, working through it, as best you can, but also, turning it into something bigger that's helping other people is just, I don't think that chapter ends any better.
I hope not. I'm trying to write the page every day, just like you are, just like we all are. I'm trying to be intentional. And now, again, after seeing the medium and having that permission, we'll say, I feel like I can really get a little more dialed in on that permission and really, really accelerate it, knowing that he's here with me, pushing me forward to do it. It just gives you that little like confirmation, I guess. So for anyone out there that thinks that they, that lost a child and they want that, not saying going to a medium is for everyone, but Renee and I are proof positive that it definitely gave us a perspective that we never thought of and we never really even considered thinking about. And it's definitely helped her. And I think it's going to help me too. And again, we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
I never knew what a medium could do. I didn't know what they couldn't do, but it made, like counseling didn't really help us per se. It wasn't, it almost made me sad every time I went. I'm like, gosh, I'm going to go to grief counseling to be sad, and it's like, for me, it wasn't that effective. So again, I don't think there's a right or wrong way. You're doing it through the podcast, which is awesome because like you said, you're helping probably, at least 5 or 8 people. I don't know.
No, I think we're up to 11.
Okay. Well, 11. Well, with me, we're all here. But yeah, you're helping people your way and I'm doing it my way. And you just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And that's all we can do.
Yep. One step at a time, one day at a time.
100%.
One page at a time.
One page at a time. I like that.
Yeah.
Yes. We're keeping that one.
Okay. I've just trademarked it.
Yes. I even thought of a title on the flight over. It's a little premature.
Yeah. You going to tell it or are you going to hold that close to your chest? What are you going to do?
Well, I was thinking, I thought of a couple names, but I thought the aftermath, picking up the pieces.
All right, man.
I just thought of that. I was, I got to run it by, it's.
Yeah, you need to run it by the publisher. It sounds apocalyptic, but
it could be, but we'll see.
Awesome, Steve. Thanks so much, man.
All right. Thank you, bud.
Yep.